If you've been part of the XRP community for any length of time, you've probably seen one number appear over and over again. Batyo. Some people treat it like a joke, some believe it's still possible, and others dismiss it as nothing more than internet folklore. But here's what surprised me. After reading hundreds of comments over the years, I realized that many XRP holders have an opinion about 589 without actually knowing where it came from. Was it a real price prediction? Was it based on mathematics? Or was it simply a rumor that took on a life of its own? Today, we're going back to the beginning, not to predict XRP's future, but to understand one of the most famous stories in crypto history. Because whether you believe in the number or not, understanding why it became so popular tells you a lot about how the XRP community evolved over the last decade. Let's start with something important. The number 589 did not come from Ripple. It wasn't announced by Brad Garlinghouse. It wasn't published in an official XRP document, and it certainly wasn't a guaranteed price target. Instead, it was born inside the XRP community itself, where thousands of investors were trying to understand what XRP could eventually become if its original vision succeeded. To understand why that happened, we have to go back to the early days of XRP. When XRP was first introduced, it wasn't trying to compete with Bitcoin as digital cash. Its goal was different. The idea was to create a digital asset capable of moving value across borders quickly, at low cost, and without requiring banks to keep large amounts of money locked around the world. That vision immediately divided people into two groups. One group looked at XRP and said, "It's centralized, it will never work." The other group focused on its utility. They believed that if banks and financial institutions ever adopted this technology on a global scale, XRP's value could be much higher than most people imagined. Notice something important here. At that stage, nobody was talking about 589. The discussion was much simpler. People were debating one basic question: could XRP become an important part of the global financial system? Then came 2017. The entire crypto market exploded. Bitcoin surged, Ethereum rallied, and XRP went from being almost forgotten to becoming one of the biggest stories in crypto. Within a relatively short period, XRP climbed from fractions of a cent to nearly $3.84. For many investors, that move completely changed the conversation. If XRP could rise that dramatically once, people naturally began asking an even bigger question: how high could it go if real-world adoption actually happened? That's when different theories started appearing. Some were based on market mathematics. Some focused on banking liquidity. Others tried connecting XRP with future financial infrastructure. And then there were theories that mixed technical observations with symbolism, creating stories that spread rapidly across the community. Among all of those ideas, one number eventually stood above every other prediction: Batyo, not because Ripple confirmed it, not because anyone could prove it, but because thousands of investors began trying to explain where that number might have come from. So where did the 589 theory actually come from? The answer is interesting because there wasn't just one explanation. Over the years, two different ideas became closely associated with that number, and together they helped turn 589 into one of the most recognizable symbols in the XRP community. Let's start with the first one. Around the time Ripple was developing improvements to the XRP ledger's consensus mechanism, the community became interested in a project known as Cobalt. Cobalt was designed to improve the network's reliability and make consensus even more resilient. That's a real part of XRP's technical history. But then something unexpected happened. Some community members noticed that the atomic weight of the element cobalt is approximately 58.93. Move the decimal point, and you get 589.3. For some people, that was just an interesting coincidence. For others, it became something much bigger. They believed it was a hidden clue pointing toward XRP's future value. Now, it's important to make a distinction. The existence of cobalt is a fact. The connection between cobalt's atomic weight and a future XRP price is a community theory. There has never been any official confirmation from Ripple that the two were connected. But once the idea spread across social media, the number 589 quickly became part of XRP culture. Then came the second explanation. This one centered around COMEX Rule 589, a real trading rule related to market price fluctuation limits. Some XRP supporters noticed the rule number matched the same 589 that had already become popular in the community. From there, another theory emerged. The idea was that if XRP ever became a global settlement asset and experienced extremely rapid price movements, trading rules like Rule 589 could become relevant in the future. Again, let's separate fact from theory. COMEX Rule 589 is real, but the idea that it predicts or confirms an XRP price target is community speculation, not an officially supported conclusion. This is exactly why the number became so controversial. Some people treated these connections as meaningful evidence, others saw nothing more than coincidences. And depending on which side you were on, 589 became either a symbol of XRP's future or an example of the community reading too much into unrelated events. But here's what I think many people miss. The reason 589 survived for so many years isn't because everyone believed it would literally become XRP's price. It survived because it represented something much larger. It became a symbol of optimism, a reminder that many early XRP holders believed the technology had the potential to transform global payments. Whether that belief ultimately proves right or wrong is a completely separate discussion. The important point is that 589 evolved beyond a number. It became part of XRP's identity, and that's why, even years later, people still bring it up whenever XRP is discussed. So where does all of this leave us? The biggest takeaway is that 589 should be understood as part of XRP's history, not as a guaranteed future price. Over the years, the number became a symbol of the community's belief in XRP's long-term potential. Some of the ideas behind it were based on real technology and real discussions about utility. Others were community theories that were never officially confirmed. And it's important to know the difference, because understanding XRP's history doesn't require believing every prediction that was ever made. It simply helps us understand why so many long-term holders still talk about 589 today. So let me ask you one question. Do you think 589 is just an internet myth? Or do you believe it represents something bigger about XRP's long-term vision? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read as many comments as I can. If you enjoyed this deep dive into XRP history and want more videos that separate facts from speculation, make sure to like this video, subscribe to OG John XRP Insights, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.